You finally get it. That thing you've been wanting for months, maybe years, the relationship you pursued, the job you worked toward, the possession you saved for, the achievement you sacrificed everything to reach. And for a moment, maybe a few days or weeks, there's satisfaction. You did it, you have it. You reached the goal, but then something disturbing happens. The satisfaction fades faster than you expected. The thing you wanted so desperately, the thing you were certain would change everything. It becomes ordinary, normal, just another part of your life that you barely notice anymore. And you're left with this hollow confusion, wondering why having the thing doesn't feel like you thought wanting the thing felt. So you do what everyone does. You find a new target, a better job, a different relationship, an upgraded possession, a bigger achievement, and the cycle starts again. The yearning returns, that delicious ache of wanting something just out of reach, that feeling of aliveness that comes from pursuit. You're energized, focused, driven. You tell yourself this time will be different, that this goal is the real one, that having this thing will finally create the lasting satisfaction you're seeking. And maybe you get it, maybe you don't, but either way the pattern continues. Because you're starting to realize something terrifying. You're addicted to wanting. The wanting feels better than the having. The pursuit feels more alive than the possession. And you're trapped in an endless cycle of chasing things that bore you the moment you catch them. And here's what makes it unbearable. You can't talk about this without sounding ungrateful or broken. You have things that other people desperately want. You've achieved what others are still struggling toward. You should be happy, satisfied, content. But you're not. You're already looking at the next thing. Already feeling that familiar restlessness. Already searching for the next source of yearning, because that's the only time you feel truly alive. You're surrounded by people who seem genuinely satisfied with what they have, who appear content with their achievements and possessions, who aren't constantly driven by this hunger for something more. And you wonder what's wrong with you, why you can't just be happy with what you have. Why satisfaction always dissolves into boredom so quickly. You're not broken, and you're not alone. Thousands of people right now who appear successful and accomplished are experiencing exactly this same cycle of desperate yearning followed by crushing boredom. What you're experiencing was identified with devastating precision by Friedrich Nietzsche, who spent his entire life examining why human beings are addicted to wanting but incapable of enjoying having, why pursuit feels more alive than possession, why we're trapped in an endless cycle that never delivers the lasting satisfaction it promises. What almost nobody understands is that Nietzsche didn't see this pattern as a character flaw or psychological dysfunction. He saw it as a fundamental feature of how desire actually works, how consciousness relates to satisfaction, how the structure of human wanting creates inevitable disappointment, and he discovered something that will either liberate you or devastate you. The problem isn't that you're choosing the wrong goals. The problem is that you're relating to desire itself in a way that guarantees dissatisfaction. And unless you transform that relationship, you'll spend your entire life chasing things that bore you the moment you possess them. Today I'm going to reveal exactly what Nietzsche understood about the yearning to have and the boredom of possessing. By the end of this video, you'll understand why wanting feels better than having, why this isn't a bug but a feature of human consciousness, and most importantly, the only path Nietzsche identified that leads out of this exhausting cycle. But I need you to know, this path doesn't offer you a way to finally feel satisfied by possession. It offers something far more demanding and far more real. Nietzsche's most profound insight about human desire wasn't about what we want. It was about the structure of wanting itself. He observed that human beings experience desire as future-oriented projection. We want something we don't have. And in the space between wanting and having, in a gap where the desired thing exists as possibility rather than possession, something remarkable happens. We're fully alive. We're engaged. We're burning with purpose because we have a clear direction, a defined goal, something to move toward. Consider what happens when you're pursuing something you desperately want. Your mind is constantly engaged with it. You imagine having it, you plan how to get it, you fantasize about how your life will change when it's yours. You're present in a way you're not present at other times because the object of desire is constantly calling your attention toward the future, toward the version of yourself who possesses what you currently lack. And this constant forward orientation creates a sense of meaning, of purpose, of aliveness. You're not just existing, you're moving towards something. You have a reason to wake up, a direction for your energy, a framework that organizes your choices. But then you get the thing. And Nietzsche observed something devastating. The moment a possibility becomes actuality. The moment's future projection becomes present possession. something dies. The thing you wanted doesn't disappear when you get it, but the wanting disappears. And you discover that what you actually enjoyed wasn't the thing itself, but the state of wanting the thing. The having feels flat compared to the yearning, because possession exists in the present, and the present is where consciousness goes to die. The present doesn't have the forward momentum that creates aliveness. It just is static and complete, with no gap between wanting and having that your consciousness can inhabit. In Human, All Too Human, Nietzsche wrote about how satisfaction kills desire, and how human beings are actually structured in a way that makes sustained satisfaction impossible. We're creatures of lack, of gap, of distance between what we are and what we want to be. And it's in that distance that we experience vitality. Close the distance, eliminate the lack, possess what you wanted, and the vitality disappears. You're left holding the thing you were certain would make you happy, wondering why having it feels so empty compared to how wanting it felt. Think about the last thing you desperately wanted and finally got. Maybe it was a relationship. You pursued someone, wanted them, fantasized about being with them, and then you got them. You're together. And for a while it's exciting, but then they become familiar. They become present possession instead of future possibility. And the aliveness you felt in pursuit starts to fade. You start noticing their flaws more than their appeal. You start feeling restless again. Not necessarily because they're wrong for you, but because possession itself is less compelling than pursuit. Or maybe it was a career achievement. You worked toward a promotion, a recognition, a level you were certain would finally prove you'd made it, and you achieved it. For a moment you felt validated, but then that achievement becomes your new baseline. It's just what you are now, not what you're becoming. And the satisfaction dissolves into new yearning, new targets, new things that exist in the future where desire can attach itself and create that familiar sense of aliveness through wanting. Now understand what this pattern reveals. You're not actually seeking the things themselves. You're seeking the state of seeking. You're addicted to yearning because yearning is when you feel most alive. Possession bores you not because the things you possess are boring, but because possession eliminates the gap where consciousness experiences itself as dynamic, as moving, as alive. The problem isn't that you're choosing wrong goals. The problem is that any goal once achieved becomes a possession, and possession, by its nature, cannot provide the aliveness that yearning provides. Nietzsche identified 3 types of people in relation to this cycle of yearning and boredom. Understanding which type you are will determine whether you spend your entire life as a slave to desire or finally break free into something real. Type 1 is what Nietzsche called the last man, the person who has optimized for comfort and completely lost the capacity for yearning. The last man doesn't experience the torture of wanting and the disappointment of having because they've successfully eliminated wanting from their life. They've settled into comfortable routine where they have enough to maintain baseline pleasure, and they've stopped reaching for anything beyond that. The last man has solved the problem of boredom after possession by never possessing anything significant enough to create profound disappointment. They keep their desires small, manageable, easily satisfied by consumer goods and entertainment and social validation. You recognize last men everywhere. They're content with streaming shows and weekend plans. They want things, but only trivial things that can be easily acquired and replaced. They don't have ambitious dreams because ambitious dreams would create yearning, and yearning is they've traded the torture of desire for the numbness of contentment, and they call this numbness happiness. The last man looks at your restless yearning and thinks you're the one with the problem. Why can't you just be satisfied? Why do you need more? Why can't you enjoy what you have? But Nietzsche saw that the last man hasn't solved the problem of desire. They've just killed desire entirely. And in killing desire, they've killed vitality, intensity, the capacity for profound engagement with existence. The last man isn't satisfied. They're just successfully numb. And while they avoid the pain of yearning and the disappointment of boredom, they also avoid ever feeling truly alive. Type 2 is the perpetual pursuer, the person who has become addicted to yearning and organizes their entire life around maintaining the state of wanting. The perpetual pursuer is you. You've noticed that wanting feels better than having, so you've structured your life to always be pursuing something just out of reach. You set new goals before you achieve current goals. You identify new desires before current desires are satisfied. You're always moving towards something in the future because the future is where aliveness lives. And you've convinced yourself that eventually, if you just find the right goal, reach the right achievement, get the right thing, you'll finally experience lasting satisfaction. But the perpetual pursuer is trapped in a cycle they don't understand. They blame the specific goals for not delivering satisfaction, so they change goals. They blame themselves for wanting the wrong things, so they try to want better things. They blame circumstances for not being right, so they change circumstances. But nothing works because the problem isn't the goals or the wanting or the circumstances. The problem is the structure of desire itself. As long as you're seeking satisfaction through possession, you're guaranteed to be disappointed because possession eliminates the yearning that made you feel alive. The perpetual pursuer experiences what Nietzsche called the tyranny of becoming. They're always becoming, never being. Always moving toward, never arriving. Always in the future, never in the present. And this creates a strange form of suffering where you're simultaneously driven and depleted, energized by pursuit but exhausted by the fact that no achievement ever delivers what the yearning promised. You look back at your life and see a trail of abandoned goals, possessed things that lost their appeal, achieved dreams that became ordinary the moment they were realized. And you wonder if you'll ever feel satisfied or if you're doomed to this endless hunger. Type 3 is what Nietzsche called the creator or the life affirmer. The person who has seen through the yearning and boredom cycle and has developed a completely different relationship to desire. The creator understands that wanting something in the future and being disappointed by having it in the present is inevitable. And instead of trying to fix this pattern, instead of searching for the goal that will finally deliver lasting satisfaction, they've accepted the pattern and transformed their relationship to it. They still have goals, still pursue things, still experience yearning, but they don't expect possession to deliver satisfaction. They've stopped relating to desire as a problem to be solved and started relating to it as the fundamental structure of aliveness. But here's what's critical. The creator doesn't abandon desire or kill yearning like the last man, and they don't become trapped in perpetual pursuit like the perpetual pursuer. What changes is where they locate value. They stop valuing the having and start valuing the process of pursuing, creating, becoming. They understand that the aliveness isn't waiting in the future when they possess what they want. The aliveness is in the present moment of engaged pursuit. They're not pursuing goals to finally be satisfied when they achieve them. They're pursuing goals because the pursuit itself is where life is most intense. If you're experiencing the exhausting cycle of yearning and boredom, if you recognize yourself as someone who's constantly pursuing but never satisfied, you need to understand the specific traps that keep you locked in this pattern. These aren't external obstacles. They're fundamental misunderstandings about what desire is and what satisfaction means. Danger 1. Believing the right goal will finally satisfy you. You're disappointed by what you've achieved, bored by what you possess, so you conclude you've been chasing the wrong things. If you just pursue more meaningful goals, more authentic desires, things that align with your true values, then possession will finally deliver the satisfaction that yearning promises. This is a trap because the pattern isn't about wrong goals. It's about the structure of desire. Nietzsche understood that any goal, no matter how meaningful or authentic, will bore you once you possess it, because possession kills yearning. And yearning is what made you feel alive. The right goal doesn't solve this. Nothing you can possess will solve this. The only solution is transforming your relationship to possession itself. Danger 2. Confusing satisfaction with happiness. You've been taught that the goal of life is to feel satisfied, content, at peace with what you have. And you interpret your constant restlessness, your inability to enjoy possession, as failure to achieve this goal. But Nietzsche saw that satisfaction in the sense of contentment with possession is actually a kind of death. It's the absence of desire, which means the absence of vitality. The truly alive person isn't satisfied. They're engaged, driven, burning with purpose. That comes from moving toward something. Happiness isn't satisfaction. Happiness is intensity of engagement. And that intensity requires yearning, requires gap, requires distance between what is and what could be. Danger 3. Using achievements to prove your worth. You're not just pursuing goals because you want the things themselves. You're pursuing them to prove something, to validate yourself, to finally feel like you're enough. And this creates a specific form of disappointment. Because even when you achieve the goal, even when you possess what you wanted, you still don't feel fundamentally different. You're still you, with all the same insecurities and doubts and sense of lack. The external achievement doesn't change your internal state. And so you conclude you need bigger achievements, more impressive possessions, greater success. But Nietzsche understood that No external possession can ever fill an internal void. Seeking validation through achievement is guaranteed to fail because achievement can't give you what you're actually seeking, which is unconditional self-acceptance. Danger for mistaking the end for the meaning. You've organized your entire life around reaching endpoints. Getting the degree, landing the job, finding the relationship, buying the house, achieving the goal, and you experience the journey toward these endpoints as just the price you pay to reach them. But then you reach the endpoint and discover it's empty. The meaning you thought was waiting at the destination doesn't exist, and you feel cheated, like you paid the price, but didn't get what was promised. Nietzsche would say you had it backwards. The endpoint was never where the meaning lived. The meaning was in the journey, in the struggle, in the process of becoming. You were actually living the meaningful part while thinking it was just preparation for the meaningful part. And now that you've arrived, there's nothing left except to start another journey. Pursue another endpoint that will also be empty when you reach it. So how do you break free from this cycle? How do you transform from someone who's trapped in perpetual unsatisfied pursuit into someone who can experience aliveness without needing it to come from yearning for what you don't have? Nietzsche mapped this transformation with brutal honesty, and it requires destroying your relationship to satisfaction in order to build something more real. The first phase is accepting the futility of possession. You must stop believing that having things will ever deliver what wanting things promises. This isn't pessimism. This is an accurate understanding of how desire works. Wanting creates aliveness through future projection. Having eliminates that projection and brings you into the static present, where there's no gap for consciousness to inhabit as yearning. You accept that every goal you achieve will eventually bore you. Every possession will become ordinary. Every dream realized will lose its magical quality. And you stop blaming yourself for the goals or circumstances for this. You recognize it as the inevitable structure of desire, not as personal failure. This acceptance is painful because it means abandoning the hope that's been driving you. The hope that someday, if you just achieve enough, possess enough, become enough, you'll finally feel satisfied in a lasting way. That hope has to die, because that hope is what keeps you trapped in the cycle. Always pursuing one more thing that will supposedly finally be different from all the previous things that disappointed you. The second phase is relocating value from outcome to process. Instead of valuing goals for what they'll give you when you achieve them, you start valuing them for what pursuing them requires you to become. You don't pursue mastery of a skill because having mastery will satisfy you. You pursue it because the process of developing mastery is where you're most alive, most engaged, most fully expressed. You don't chase a creative vision because completing it will make you happy. You chase it because creating it demands your full capacity, forces you to grow, requires you to engage at maximum intensity. Nietzsche called this becoming who you are. You're not trying to get somewhere so you can finally be satisfied. You're engaging in processes that require you to express and develop your authentic nature. And the value is in that expression and development, not in the endpoint. The musician doesn't practice to finally reach a skill level where they can stop practicing. They practice because practicing is where musicianship lives. The writer doesn't write to be finished writing. They write because writing is where their particular form of aliveness expresses itself. The third phase is embracing what Nietzsche called amor fati, love of fate, which in this context means loving the cycle of yearning and boredom instead of trying to escape it. You accept that you'll always want things you don't have, and that having them will always disappoint compared to wanting them. And instead of seeing this as torture, you recognize it as the engine that keeps you growing, creating, becoming. The yearning drives you forward. The boredom with possession prevents you from stagnating. Together, they create a rhythm of engagement and renewal that keeps you alive and developing instead of satisfied and static. This doesn't mean enjoying disappointment. It means recognizing that the disappointment is information. When you possess something and it bores you, that's not failure. That's your authentic self telling you that you've outgrown that goal, that you're ready for new challenges, that you need new mountains to climb. The boredom isn't the enemy. The boredom is what prevents you from settling into the death of satisfaction. The fourth phase is choosing goals based on the journey they create rather than the destination they promise. You stop asking, what will I get when I achieve this? You start asking, what will I become by pursuing this? What capacities will this develop? What parts of myself will this require me to express? What intensity of engagement will this demand? You choose goals that make you more alive in the pursuit, not goals that promise satisfaction in the possession. And this completely transforms what you pursue and how you pursue it. You might discover that you've been chasing things that promised external validation but didn't require any authentic engagement from you. You might realize you've been pursuing goals because society says they're valuable, not because pursuing them makes you feel alive. You might find that the things you actually want to pursue, the processes that would actually require your full authentic engagement, are things you've been avoiding because they're risky or unconventional or don't promise the kind of possession that looks impressive to others. The fifth phase is what Nietzsche called eternal return applied to desire. He asks, if you had to repeat this exact cycle of yearning and boredom eternally, if you could never escape it, never find the possession that finally satisfies, never reach the end of wanting, could you say yes to that? Could you embrace perpetual desire not as torture, but as the condition of aliveness? The person who can say yes to eternal return has transformed their relationship to desire. They're not seeking escape from yearning through satisfaction. They're living in the yearning itself as the most alive state available to consciousness. Remember that restlessness you feel? That inability to be satisfied with what you have? That constant yearning for something more? It's not a character flaw and it's not wrong desire. It's consciousness experiencing itself as alive through the gap between what is and what could be. You've been treating it as a problem to solve, something to overcome by finally finding the right goal or achieving the right thing. But the restlessness isn't the problem. The expectation that possession will eliminate restlessness is the problem. You're a creature of desire, of yearning, of forward momentum. And that's not dysfunction. That's your nature. The last man has killed that nature and called it contentment, but you can't kill it without killing your vitality, your engagement, your aliveness. You're not meant to be satisfied in the sense of content with possession. You're meant to be alive in the sense of constantly engaged with becoming, creating, pursuing, developing, and that requires perpetual yearning, perpetual dissatisfaction with what is in favor of what could be. Nietzsche understood that the yearning to have and the boredom of possessing aren't opposite problems that cancel each other out if you just find the right balance. They're two sides of the same structure of desire, and that structure is what makes you capable of growth, development, creation. Without yearning, you'd stagnate. Without boredom after possession, you'd never move beyond what you've achieved. Together, they create the engine of becoming that keeps you alive and evolving instead of satisfied and dead. Stop for a second and feel the truth of what I just said. You've been chasing possession after possession, achievement after achievement, goal after goal, always disappointed when having doesn't deliver what wanting promised. And you've been blaming yourself or the goals or circumstances when actually you were just misunderstanding the nature of desire itself. If this resonates, comment. The journey is the destination. Your words will reach someone else right now who's exhausted from pursuing satisfaction that never comes, who needs to understand that they're not failing at desire, they're just relating to it wrong. Subscribe to the channel for insights that challenge everything you've been taught about satisfaction and happiness. Every week I bring you Nietzsche's most demanding truths about what it actually means to be alive versus what it means to be merely satisfied. This isn't comfortable philosophy. This is liberation for people ready to stop chasing possession and start embracing the intensity of perpetual becoming. If you're ready to understand how to find meaning in process rather than outcome, check out my video on Nietzsche's concept of eternal return, where I reveal exactly how to say yes to your life, including its perpetual cycles of yearning and disappointment. The path from exhausted pursuit to engaged becoming starts with accepting that satisfaction through possession is an illusion, and that aliveness lives in the yearning itself. The yearning to have will always feel more alive than the boredom of possessing. Not because you're choosing wrong goals, but because that's how desire works. How consciousness experiences itself as vital, how human beings are structured, and you can spend your entire life fighting this structure, chasing the possession that will finally be different. Or you can accept it and transform your relationship to it. You can stop valuing having and start valuing becoming. You can stop seeking satisfaction and start embracing intensity. You can stop trying to escape yearning and start living in it as the most alive state available to you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next dimension.